This will be the most structured part we have, guys.
Probably.
All right, well, everyone, welcome back to Half in the Bag, a disc golf podcast where three of us friends get together, grab a drink, and ramble on about disc golf for, however long we feel like. Starting off here, my name's Ben. I'm up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and today I'm sipping on a local Wisconsin favorite, a Spotted Cow from New Glarus Brewery.
And I'm RJ. I'm up in northeastern Indiana, and I am drinking a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Well, look at you, Mr. Fancy Pants. I'm Joe, and I'm drinking a hot toddy. I'm in Northeast Indiana as well. Hot toddies are delicious. If you don't know what they are, it's tea, little honey, lemon, and, it's only supposed to be about a shot of brandy, but, well, yay.
You spend time in Wisconsin, you know what a shot of alcohol looks like.
I know how you pour things.
This is a shot, right?
A Captain and Coke is Captain with a shot of Coke.
Hey, don't give away next week's drink already.
Next week's drink, that's all you live on. But we've got got a bunch of topics here. We're going to go over the 2022 rule changes, talk a little bit about Disc Golf Valley, and some fun stuff coming up with that. Some movement here. We have finally a landing zone for Chris Dickerson and Haley King, and getting on to some listener questions.
Hey, Joe?
Yo.
I'm just going to stop you right there for a second. If you've ever seen my upshots, you know I have no landing zone.
It's wherever it stops.
Yep. Hopefully not in the pond or, over the fence.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could we could start out with the rules, and we could start out, we'll jump down a couple here and go to the out of bounds.
Look at RJ with the transition work. It's almost like we talked about it, but I can assure you, we never talked about it.
No, not at all.
Nope.
So, not much has really changed with that. The rule before was you get 1 meter perpendicular to whatever the out of bounds line is. The new rule is 1 meter away from wherever it goes out of bounds. So, it's basically an arc. And you get 1 meter. You could take that meter straight at the basket if you want, because there's no real big deal. Obviously, if there's a designated drop zone, you go there and that kind of stuff. But pretty straightforward. Or you could go back and do a rethrow.
So with that arc, if you take that meter forward from where it went out, you could still theoretically only be a few inches from the out of bounds line, but it would potentially change your run-up angle is kind of what I'm assuming the theory behind that is. Potentially.
It gives you more leeway. Because sometimes taking it perpendicular just throws you into a bush or a tree or something like that. So now you can kind of angle yourself maybe in front of that. Maybe angle it so that you have a clear line to the basket.
Well, and I'm also thinking that would be helpful if I don't play any of these type of courses, but if you're playing something with an island style green or a peninsula style green where you hit the front edge and roll back into it, well, now you're not trying to figure out, okay, how can I take this lie? But you can just go, okay, well, I went out here, so, okay, I'm going to take a half a step forward back in bounds or something like that. Is that an accurate interpretation of the rule, or is that stretching it a little bit?
Generally,
go ahead.
Generally for an island, there's a drop zone.
Right, right. Obviously, if there's not a drop zone,
the one that comes to mind for me is hole 6 at Sweeney. It's a 400 foot up to a peninsula shot with a pretty steep drop off, like angled away from the basket on all 3 sides, and an angry goose along the backside.
Yes, do not overshoot that hole.
That's every year a goose finds their way back there.
And every year, usually in the spring, whenever they're nesting, I just go up there. I usually make it into circle 1, see the goose, and go, yeah, par's fine. I made this putt.
Yep, the one time a gimme is okay. As long as it's not tournament play, like, yeah, that's in. I can assure you I hit my circle 2 35-footer from there just because I don't want to risk going behind the hole.
I mean, I haven't made one all day, but I made one today, or made one on that hole.
Yep. Little UDIS check mark. Damn, I look good from 60 feet out because I'm not willing to go behind this hole.
Wow, I've birdied this hole 5 times in a row.
Man, I'm crushing these field aces from 80 feet out.
I'm assuming some of that rule also has to do with if you get rid of the word perpendicular, it's less for people to argue about.
It's also
that's a 60-degree angle, not a 90-degree angle.
Yeah,
all right, it's a meter.
Sometimes, I mean, you've seen it. Well, you haven't been here since PFW, but some of the out of bounds lines that have been drawn, it looks like whoever drew them was half in the bag. You're like, well, it's perpendicular from this spot, but if I was 6 inches further, it's definitely not perpendicular. I need to.
I suppose a lot of that could come into play too. Think if it comes to a right angle.
Yeah,
right?
that's one of the other things they talked about.
And all of a sudden you're out, but you're a meter out from where you went out, but you're only 6 inches from the back half. Now you can kind of take it and give yourself a little bit more room if you were to land in maybe a corner or something. So I suppose that's probably a good reason too.
Yep. Another part of this rule, the director may announce relief greater than 1 meter from a particular out of bounds area on a hole. So something that comes to mind is the temporary course at PFW for the Fort Wayne Outfitters Open. They renamed it a couple years ago. Good tournament if anybody ever wants to come out to Fort Wayne to do it.
My first tournament.
Was it your first? Did you play with Kayla? Did you play with Kayla in that one, or was Brian with Kayla in that one?
I think Brian was.
Brian was with that one. Okay.
But there's a couple holes where you're up against the fencing for the soccer field and for the baseball field. So you can, I mean, the rule before that was you could take infinite relief back in a straight line from the basket. But, if there's some kind of hazard or something, like at Three Rivers Open this last year, there were 3 different spots of hazard where there were ground hornets' nests.
Ooh.
Yeah, so they had that spray painted marked like crazy, and you played it casual.
Well, I remember that was a rule a couple of years ago that they implemented too with kind of casual water and stuff like that. Like, as long as you're going away from the hole and it's not just to improve your shot, but to improve your footing, that type of stuff was legal in most tournaments. I mean, obviously, your tournament director could, modify things based off of the setting, but like that became one of the rules of you can take relief as to, get out of the casual water, whether it's a meter, whether it's 10 meters, as long as it was kind of straight back from your lie. So
what was funny,
and I think those are just quality of life improvements. It doesn't affect the game. Mm-hmm. And it could be safety too, depending on the situation. If there's walls involved, out of bounds, a lot of times these disc golf courses, you'll see barbed wire fencing, to make sure that you're plenty clear of that kind of stuff. Casual water to make sure your footing's good. I think there are changes that are going to be good for the game overall.
Yeah. There was one tournament I played in. There was a small, I would say kind of like a drainage ditch that was full. And that was played as casual. And where that landed, there was probably a 75-foot straight back, straight in line with the basket, and he backed up so far.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it was like knee-deep water.
That feels like it's taking advantage of it a little bit.
Well, it was knee-deep water. It was just basically the way the ditch was lined. He had to go, if he didn't want to stand in water, he backed up another 75 feet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of funny.
Was it last year too? They implemented the rule that depending on your tournament director, that you could even take relief, in certain places towards the hole, right? Wasn't that a thing? Like if you're trying to overshoot water and you miss the water, you could actually take your drop from the other side and stuff like that. I mean, it was very tournament specific.
Yeah, and the way this one was set up, you basically everybody would have thrown in there because you would have been in circle 1. On a 400-ish foot hole through not a bad tunnel shot, but one you had to pay attention to essentially. So, I think so. That was rule 806.02 out of bounds. We did talk about excessive time last week, I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit. We touched
So-
on
Yeah.
it.
Basically, the rule change there is this is 802.3, Part A, point number 4. Basically, your 30 seconds is when the playing area is clear, and it used to be worded free of distraction. And so that old wording left it pretty easy to take advantage of the rule
Yeah.
and just claim that there is a distraction.
Yeah. I heard a car in the,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the courses that we play.
You'd never go.
I mean, right, exactly. I mean, do you want to talk about, PFW, which is in the woods, and, will that acorn fell 2 holes over, or,
or the 7
Show
holes
where
at
it-
Shoaf that are along the woods or the
Yep.
street, I
So-
mean.
or, yeah,
It's got a couple that kind of follow the
Or
road. And
Tillman, I'm thinking hole 12, you're 30 feet
Yeah.
off the road for the tee box.
yeah. But yeah, for the tee box, though, they bring the
Yeah.
hole a little further away. But
Yeah, you angle away from that, but overall, like,
right.
yeah.
I mean, distraction could be anything. Now, actually, I did have a question about this. Now that we're talking
Yeah.
about it, because at Shoaf,
Yep.
one of the things that we routinely do in casual rounds is we have to sit there and wait and wait. I mean, there will be times where if we're playing casual rounds, it feels like we're waiting 2-3 minutes just because of cars going by. Would that be considered in this rule? In that, once
Yeah.
I would say
the cars are
because
clear,
of, so,
or
just for everybody, so they're clear, the tee box is probably 10-15 feet off the road.
there's a couple holes like
the
that.
basket ends up being about 30 feet off the road, and the popular
that.
route to throw is forehand out over the road.
Mhm.
And
Which
if
is
you're-
out of bounds to help prevent you going from that direction.
But there's no
at the same
mandatory.
time, if there's no mandatory that keeps you away from it.
So I would probably say the playing area needs to be clear. I think that would fall under that.
Yeah.
Just because
And that would- Mhm.
you're going, it's a shorter hole. It's like 270-ish. One of them's 270. One of them's like 280 or something like that. Or no,
Yeah, maybe a little more variety than that, but
250 and 270, I think, something like that. They're
yeah, that sounds
relatively
about
close. But
Mhm.
the both holes, they're basically back to back. You throw out over the road.
yeah,
And,
yeah. I
like
mean,
if you have a forehand that can go
they're
250,
parallel to the road.
yeah, because the way the trees are set up, you're kind of playing Plinko and praying with the trees if you go with the Heiser route.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Which
there's
I do.
Or you could kind of go straight at it, but then you're still kind of running
Yeah.
the risk of it skipping into the road.
If you get a hyzer skip, you're in trouble. My guess
Yeah.
is where this rule is designed is obviously for the sake of the putting green.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
There's certain
Oh, yeah.
professionals like Nico that are known for taking long putts.
Yep.
And I think it's a pretty understanding assumption amongst disc golfers. Early on, they're not going to call you. If you take,
Yeah.
a minute to kind of make your first putt, whatever. It's as it continues to really slow the game down that people are going to care. For the sake of Nico, maybe they'll care a little bit more on the first
Yeah.
hole just because they know what's coming. But like, if I'm playing around with you guys and you're stuck of like, I got a weird wood shot. Do I want a forehand? Do I want to do this? And all of a sudden it kind of takes you, 30, 40, 50 seconds to decide. I'm not going to sit and call you guys out on a shot like that. I think a lot of it pertains to the putting green
Yep.
and waiting for that wind to die so you have no wind on that putting green shot. I think is where this is probably pertaining the most to. But a lot of it's coming down to when you do get stuck in those woods, are you waiting for the right wind so that tree branch isn't cutting in your way? And I think it just brings into the fact of most people aren't going to call you on that 30 seconds unless it becomes a continuous issue. If you're taking every time you end up in the woods, I'm taking a minute to decide where I'm throwing. All right, let's start this timer. Let's get things going.
Yeah.
and
if you're
that's one of the things. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was going to say, and if you're taking like 35 seconds, no one's going to call you on that. No one's going to care that much. But it's really for those guys who play slow all the time. Like Nico's, from what I can tell, is really only slow on the green or like 100 feet out from the green kind of thing. Where someone like Gannon is slow everywhere. And that's what Drew Gibson called him on at US was no, not USD, DGPT championship, called him for excessive time because it was bad. Like, it was one of those, like, dude, we're 5 holes in, you need to kind of deal. And Drew Gibson's one of the guys who's actually going to do that, I think. And some people were trying to say, like, oh, he's trying to be some alpha Chad douche kind of thing. And he really wasn't. He's following the rules. He's just the only one who's going to say something.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is there's following the rules and there's having some leeway, but if you're going to do it consistently, understand the rule. If you're a guy that takes 30 to 40 seconds to putt, work on speeding that up, because it's going to may not get called on hole 1, may not get called on hole 2. But if you're taking 45 seconds to putt and it's a windy day and it feels like you're just waiting for the wind, I'm going to call you on it. Am I going to do it on hole 1? I mean, in a tournament setting, potentially. If I've played with you in a tournament, I know you do this all the time, potentially. And that's the thing. These pro golfers, they play with each other all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So they know it's not them just being an asshole. It's, all right, I'm not doing this shit all day again. We talked about that a little bit last week when I played with that junior amateur player who was very, very solid. But it threw me off my game. Yeah. And it was excessive.
And, that's just one of the things that I think will help with coverage too, where guys are just like sitting there and it's like, okay, all right, let's go. Like, I get it. Golf is a slow game. It's not football. It's not soccer. It's not hockey. But
for the sake of your cameraman, like you were talking about too, it's like, hey, I got to get to the next hole. Let's move on. And as the sport is growing and as it's getting a better media presence, for the sake, especially as we're doing live media, it's going to make a big difference. I mean, the post-production stuff, I've seen Joe Mez plenty of times start with Nico walking up to his putt. You can tell they cut it, and then they go back to his putt, so it looks like he's putting in 2 seconds. But he's sitting there taking 30 practice swings. Yeah. It's just post-production, you don't think much of it, but especially as the sport's growing, they're going to get into live a little bit more. I think it's going to be a good thing for the sake of growing the sport publicly that way.
Well, and again, like I said last week, one of my favorite things from last year was watching it was post-production stuff on ESPN. It wasn't ESPN The Ocho. It might have been ESPN, The Ace or something like that. But
they were on ESPN2, and Dynamic Discs Open last year was, or 2 years ago, was CBS Sports.
Yeah, and just watching that stuff, it's a lot of fun to watch. But at the same time, if you're only having 1 or 2 cameramen, and it's not something where, especially once you're into live coverage, where you can go, okay, we're going to go to hole 5 where Paul is getting ready to hit his upshot. And then, he does that. And then it's, okay, now we're going to go to hole 4 and Ricky's, getting ready to hit a putt. But if you have, if you have a whole tournament.
This no-name guy just threw in from, 200 feet on hole 17. He's one of those bottom card guys, but it was a great shot.
Yeah. But, even in the tournaments that we play, Joe, that we've played together, how often has it been, okay, we get to, the back 9 of our card, and it's like, okay, now we're waiting for, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to tee off after the last hole, just sitting on the tee box. And like you said, it goes back to what you said, Ben, about it just messes with your game. If you're sitting there and you're in a groove, the last thing that you want to do is just sit there and wait for 3 minutes, sitting on your hands going, okay, how do I want to approach this shot? How do I, from a sports psych and from a physiological perspective, it just messes with you. And, like you said, there's leeway in it. In the tournaments that I've played, a lot of times there's been disc golfers that are a lot more experienced than I am that have been like, hey, are we okay with giving a little bit of leeway on, however long to find your disc? Because we know it's here. We know it's in this 50-foot radius or whatever.
And
we're not playing with spotters like they are in the pro tournament.
Right, exactly.
And at a C tier, this is one thing I definitely learned. At a C tier in League, that rule, you could call someone on it. It's kind of rough. I played a B tier and 3 technically A tiers this year. And holy crap, at those A tiers, man, those guys are on it for that 3 minutes. That card behind you.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, I bet.
It is
I bet.
rough.
Yeah.
But also understandable.
As the tournament gets bigger, though, you typically get more workers, you get some more spotters. It
Yep.
becomes a little bit less of an issue. When you're playing C tiers, your volunteers are running the registration tent, running your merchandise tent.
The hard part was this was a hole you probably shouldn't have needed a spotter. There was a wood line all along the right-hand side, and the whole left, everything left was wide open. A handful of trees here and there. But if you throw a backhand and don't turn it over, you're golden. And you're throwing up, you're probably 70 feet higher than the basket. It's a 400-foot hole, but it's all it's downhill 70 feet.
Right.
So it doesn't play 400, and one guy just turned it. Oh, he got too excited. He's like, I can crush this one, and just took something understable. And we're like, there it goes. See ya.
You're just bringing up bad memories for me with Three Rivers Open when I had a 3-stroke lead going into the final 9.
Yep.
After 2 days and was killing it, and I was shooting the best golf of my life, and then I put up a 9 on a single par 4 because I was determined I could hit a forehand. Turns out I cannot hit a pressure forehand, so if I'm in a pressure situation, I just need to throw a putter straight and just deal with it, taking an extra stroke. If I just shoot a 5 there, I win that tournament. I only lost the tournament by 3 strokes, and I shot a 9 on a single hole. If I even just take a putter and throw it 30 feet at a time, I get a 6 and I win the tournament.
Yeah.
It took, and it was the frickin' second hole on that 9, and I had to spend the entire back 9 trying to bring that score back into hand, and I got it back.
Yeah.
But it took me out of my game, and when one side of the hole is completely open, and you determine to push that out of bounds line because you're determined you can do it.
But it's a backhand. That's the difference. Pretty much every player has a backhand. I am one of those rare exceptions. I was one of those rare exceptions.
My wife falls in that category.
So yeah, that actually happened to me. The Three Rivers Open I played the year before that, or 2 years before that. I played rec, first tournament, didn't even really know the rules. I was learning them on the fly. Not that I ever played bad or anything. It was just like, hey, you need to speed it up kind of thing. Although generally speaking, I am a very fast disc golfer because the more I think about whatever, the worse I will do. But I remember I started on hole, we were at Sweeney West, and I started on 16 or 17. And I was doing great. I was getting birdies. I was like, all right, I'm great. I get to hole 6, and I throw a snowman.
I recall that tournament. That was the one that you won that Justice on, I think, right?
Yeah, that was only because
the first year you moved to Fort Wayne, and then we joined shortly after. Or was that a year after that?
It was before that. The only reason I won that was because I happened to get a program with the sticker in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, but that was that same year, I think, right?
Yep. But so there is one more part to this excessive time. It is part C, and I'm just going to read this whole thing through, and then give you the background as to why it's in here now.
I feel like we should have left the excessive time rule for the end of the episode as we go into extra. It would have just made a little bit more casual fun there.
No kidding. A player may request extra time from the group to take a bathroom break. If the player does not return in a reasonable amount of time, the player is considered missing for the hole, receives a score of par plus 4 for the hole. So one tournament,
bathroom breaks.
Paul Macbeth actually had to go to the bathroom and had to run across the street to some taco place to use their bathroom. And so I forget who it was on his card, but was getting pissed about that. And was throwing a fit. It's dude, I poop.
Yes, I could see it, but I understand. But yeah, there's just some things you don't have control over.
Yeah, if we're in the middle of a tournament and guy's like, hey, I gotta poop, I'm not gonna stop him. So what's he gonna do? He's gonna poop on the tee pad? Like, no.
Yeah, you get extra time if it's requested. I'm not feeling it right here. I'm in the groove. You need to hold it. Like,
Yeah.
Well, what we were playing around this summer before my reception, and we were trying to get Ben's disc back, and all of a sudden I'm like,
Still lost.
"Hey guys, we're about 2 holes from the end. I gotta go get ready for my rehearsal, and
Poop.
I gotta go. I'll catch up with you guys later."
Funny thing is, that disc is still up in the tree. At least as far as I know. I have never gotten a call.
I tried to look for it when I played there probably a month ago now. I couldn't find it, but I know the hole and I know roughly where it was, and I couldn't see it.
I mean, it was hard to find even when we saw it land and had the exact tree, exact branch it was on. You could barely see it with the angle it hit.
And I'm trying to walk into the woods going, I remember standing here and vaguely looking in this direction, and yeah, it was way up there.
I will also say, I'm really just imagining Paul Macbeth being like, "Oh gosh, I gotta go," and sprinting over to the Taco Bell across the street and going in like the nastiest Taco Bell bathroom that you can think of.
I'm thinking of it more like Jurassic Park style with the guy who runs out before the T-Rex. It's like, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
And this is where the podcast was doing okay. We were doing so much better, and it's
all
right
of a
back
sudden,
where we
when I
were
look at the
episode
statistics at the 26-minute mark, for some reason, everybody stopped listening.
25 minutes. Everyone was logging off. We were getting 25 good minutes of views, and everybody quit.
Don't know why. They completely...
We promise it'll get better, maybe, sort of? Probably not.
So they completely reworked the Mando rule. This is 804.1. Because of some issues at Worlds, I think it was, with Paige Pierce. Yes, sir. You have
your mandatory to drink now.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the one that, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen more controversy online about. I haven't looked into it. That's one thing you and I talked about. You read the rules. I am coming in blind. I just know there was people arguing about this rule somehow, some way.
With what happened to Paige is they weren't 100% certain if she made the Mando or not, because it was basically where she was throwing from, the angle everybody was at. It was like, yeah, maybe. But then when you looked at it on camera, it was like, yeah, no. Because she went above like the tree or the pole or whatever.
Okay, like played a hyzer line.
Yeah, it was so high up where you couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
Like from the angle that they were standing at, but from a different angle, it's like, well, yeah, no. So part A is a mandatory route restricts the path, straightforward there. The restricted space is a vertical plane marked by one or more objects or other markers that define the edges of the space. So, like, pole on the ground, it goes infinitely high, which is what I thought it always was.
I kind of assumed that it was like the baseball foul pole where that thing just extended all the way up, or, the goalpost in football where that thing just extended all the way up.
Yep.
It's infinitely plane across with a football touchdown. Like, that's kind of, my mind is... where you have to understand where that line is, but that's where it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's hard to, it's not like you're ever going to know unless you put somebody standing right under the pole like they do in the NFL,
Yeah.
And then part C is if a throw clearly and completely enters the restricted space, the player receives one penalty throw. The lie for the next throw is the drop zone for that mandatory. If no drop zone has been designated, the lie for the next throw is from the previous lie. So if you miss the Mando on, 7 at Shof, you just re-tee. So this means, like, if you go... Is it 6? It is 6.
Yeah.
I think it's 6. 6 or 7, yeah.
It
6 goes
matter.
up.
We're the only ones who know.
Yeah,
we're the only ones who knows. It doesn't matter. So basically,
it was definitely 7. Yeah, totally.
If you miss the Mando before, the way it was, like if you missed the Mando but you cut rolled and you came back around, you're all good. Like we've had that happen before. Like, you throw a bad shot, it just passed the Mando, but somehow like it kicks back around, and then you're back in front of the Mando, and you just take it from there. You can't do that anymore. Once it goes past the Mando, it's like an invisible wall, basically, like the end zone.
Okay.
Once you're in, kind of deal.
Interesting.
You can't come back out. So
I guess I personally don't like that rule.
yeah, I mean,
but I guess it also hits the
harsh.
I guess it also hits if you hit the zone, you hit a tree and roll back out of the zone, you had already hit it.
yeah.
You know, I'm sure that works in that sense where maybe you hit the zone but hit a tree just past your mandatory. It drops, rolls behind the mandatory, but hey, you already hit it. You're good. You don't have to go through it again.
That's
it
my
was supposed to be the other half of it. So, for as much as it could hurt, it could also really help because if you end up back, you make the Mando.
Yep.
You go around it, but all of a sudden you have a clear line to the right, but you Mando, because you're technically behind it, you have to go left. I mean, I guess I could see both sides of it. If that's the way, I would assume. I'm assuming with the new rule, once you're through, you're through.
That's the way.
If the Mando is a big tree, you hit a branch on the back side of that tree, it hits and rolls back behind the Mando.
Yeah.
You've already hit the Mando. That's how I would read it. Is if it hurts you, it can also help you.
The way they describe it is it's a vertical plane. So I like to think of it as like the uprights. Mm-hmm. Once you go through, you're through. Kind of deal. So you're good. That's how I understand it. Now, I'm sure there are going to be crazy situations that happen, and there will be definitely a clarification, but I honestly haven't seen it happen too often where you miss the Mando, but then you come and cut roll back behind. Like 6 at Shof, I've seen it happen a little more often, only because of the hill. There's a slight hill there where if you get on edge, you can roll back to safety, essentially.
I'm trying to think of what the Mandos are in Fort Wayne, and I'm just like, I can't really imagine
13 at Shof
doing that.
But think if you throw really nose up, right?
Yeah.
Bad shot, you go throw nose up, you clear the Mando technically, but you come up into the tree branches, hit and drop straight down.
Yeah.
You end up on the edge and roll back.
Yeah.
Now, if you end up rolling back, chances are you're going to go to the same side as the Mando, but every now and then if you roll and it's just a better shot from the other side, if you've already hit your Mando, you've already hit your Mando.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, I could see that being...
No.
It would suck for the guy that gets the tree lev and comes back, and he's going to want to argue that, it never passed, but you get the tree lev, you kick back, and you have that chance to shoot, good for you. It sucks, but whatever. But it could really potentially save someone in those situations, too. So I think it's really probably just a matter of that's what they've always intended,
so
and it just clarifies it.
Reading the little notes that they had in here, before it was based on where the disc stopped, not so much the route. So kind of like what I was saying, you go past, but you somehow cut roll back and you're good. Now it's if it enters that zone at all, go to the drop zone or re-tee or whatever, however that all works.
Which I'm sure will lead to arguments a little bit, but probably. I mean, that's what's also nice when you have the tournament director. They decide that's what the ruling is.
And
throw a provision. If you're not sure, throw the provisionary. Talk about it at the end of the round.
Yep.
And do it.
That's one rule that no one should ever forget about: throwing a provisional.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing because your card could very well be wrong. You could be wrong.
Yep.
It never hurts to throw that second shot. Now, before you throw it, clarify with your card. I'm throwing a provisional shot just in case.
Yep.
If you throw an extra disc, you get stroked and all that kind of fun stuff. But
now, I will say it almost feels like this is a case where the rules are now trying to clarify the spirit of the rule.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's how I am seeing, and that's what I've noticed with a lot of the more recent rule changes, is they're less of a rule change and more of a better description of what they actually meant in the first place.
A lot of times they're getting rid of the fluff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're cutting it down. Instead of it being 2 paragraphs, it's now like 4 bullet points. And it's like, oh, okay, I get that now. That's so much, that's a lot more straightforward kind of thing.
And somehow the 4 bullet points are clearer than a full paragraph.
Yes. Because then sometimes they just start bringing in too many scenarios, and it's like, no, don't do that, please.
What was the Supreme Court's definition of pornography? You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes with some of these rules, that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like when it comes to something like this, I do not envy the person that has to come up and edit this rule book every year, because 90% of that rule book is stuff you're never going to see in a round.
Yep.
But for that one time it happens, you have to have a ruling so it's played the same way every time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's usually in October-ish, maybe November. They will publish on the PDGA website, like, here are the rule changes we're proposing for next year, comment, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's a good idea. It's a good way. Like, the sport is still the right size where you can do something like that.
Plus, all those guys...
Is the NFL going to put it out to their viewers?
No. But they have guys who literally... I mean, referees literally go to school. And yes.
Yeah. Well, and they also have huge committees that do it.
Yes.
Right now, disc golf is a size where... You could break it down to committees, absolutely, and probably get some more definite.
There are.
But at the same time, it's a small enough where you can still reach a mass majority of your people. Send out an email to your certified
PDGA members are there now?
Just over 200,000 numbers have been given out.
Yes.
That's
as far as active, who knows? But
active, probably maybe half that, best case scenario.
Yeah, so I mean, very much so a situation where the membership is small enough that there's you can go to your members and say, what do you think about this? Which is, I mean, in fairness, that is kind of what the NFL, the NBA, et cetera, does. They go to their members,
coaches associations.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
And there are rules committee. There is a rules committee for the PDGA. There's a handful of people on it. But how do you know, like, this happened to us all the time. We could say something and it makes perfect sense to the three of us. But then as soon as you say it, everybody's like, wait a second. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, so this podcast
makes sense to the three of us, but everybody else
ramble on for an hour. Like, hey, we had a great time. People watch like, what the hell are these guys talking about?
And then you get people going like, it's like they're trying to communicate with us.
Well, speaking of communicating, do we want to communicate our next point and move on from getting into the nitty gritty of the rules?
Yeah.
Are you calling us out on the time thing already?
Well,
come on now.
On top of that, one last thing I was going to say.
30 seconds on this topic?
Yeah. One last thing I was going to say about that. I think it's closer to
30 minutes.
Was how many people of the active members, how many people actually go to the PDGA website and look at that stuff? Like, I go there every day, but that's because of the podcast and the news site. Before I started that, I went to the website once a month for ratings updates and
I haven't played this tournament. I go there once a year to renew.
Yeah. So
I don't go there at all because I'm not a member.
Yeah.
Well, get on that shit.
They got a whole bunch.
I would,
of stuff
but I'm
here.
waiting for 300,000.
Yeah. 250.
I want to be that. I want to be that number.
Yeah, I want to be 250,000 on the dot. Otherwise, I'm waiting till 3K or till 300K.
Yep. They have a whole thing about misplays. So if you, at the start of a round, if you're not there, essentially, you get par +4.
Okay.
If you're missing,
until you get there, kind of thing.
Yeah, if a player's missing, if they're there with the start of the group and is now missing, they get their 30 seconds and then par +4. So if you're there for hole 1 and then for some reason you're not there for hole 2, you get your 30 seconds on the box. You're not there. Oh well.
You had to go run to the bathroom.
Yeah, but if you didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming where that comes in is, we've played in tournaments where all of a sudden you have a 4-group backup on a hole.
Yep.
All right, maybe I'm going to go back and look for that disc since no one's, since I have time. I probably got 10 minutes before I got to throw. I'm going to go look for it, and then they don't come back.
Yep.
I'm sure that's probably where people go missing from tournaments. It could have potentially something to do with injury if you had to run back. And I would assume for the sake of injury, if you had to run back to your car, get a Band-Aid or something like that, people would be understanding.
Yeah.
But for the sake of tournament, trying to keep things moving, I can absolutely see why those are put in play. Casual round, is that going to ever come up? No.
I mean, none
Casual
of the rules
round?
really come up in casual anyway.
Who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Well,
Unless you're
Side
jump
bets do,
putting
you know.
inside the circle.
well, actually, Ben made a point that I kind of want to get on a soapbox on. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned, running to your car to get a Band-Aid. Why is it that, especially at the big tournaments, that we don't have, some type of a big medical coverage?
Money.
Yeah, I know the actual reason. But realistically,
some of it could be too, what's your risk of high injury? I mean, if you think about it, for the sake of tournaments, your heat stroke is probably your biggest risk of injury.
You're telling me that the PDG or the PGA doesn't have someone at Masters and the US Open?
At DGPT events, they have someone.
You're right.
That's like an ambulance on site or something along those lines.
One of the guys, I'm blanking on his name. He
the guy
is
from Disc Golf Strong?
The Disc Golf Strong guy.
Oh, it actually is.
Yeah, he's a personal
Does he
trainer,
have medical?
EMT. He was a medic in the Coast Guard.
Okay, so he does have some medical.
He's got a
training
background.
at those.
I don't know if any of that is I don't know if he's kept up his EMT license.
Okay.
His certifications and all that stuff.
Yeah. But at the very least, I can guarantee he keeps up his BLS, his American Heart CPR first aid.
I mean,
which at that point, that's about all you need because you're not going to be able to offer anything else, and you're calling.
Yeah, you're going to be calling a squad anyways.
Yeah.
And I would assume, or at least I would hope, if you're running a big tournament, I'm thinking DDO, I'm thinking Idlewild, I'm thinking Las Vegas Challenge, big tournaments, that they have the mindset to maybe call their local squad and say, hey, we're going to have a lot of people out here playing a lot of physical activity just as a heads up ahead of time.
Yep.
All three of us are athletic trainers. If we have a big cross-country event, we're calling our local squad to, hey, just so you know, this is happening. Not that we necessarily need you to be on site because we understand we'd have to pay you to be on site, but be aware to potentially be in the area.
Yeah.
Oh, and I mean, A, that's just good emergency protocol, but B, at something like that, you all of a sudden get like a thunderstorm or something where people are out on the course.
That's happened
you could
a couple
be talking
times
about
this year.
Yeah, I mean, you could be talking about the potential for like a mass casualty event. I mean, I don't think that anyone's gonna, go in and bomb the DDO like the Boston Marathon or something.
There's not enough people there. Disc golf is popular, but it is not
right.
popular.
Exactly. That's not going to be necessarily a target of that. But I mean. A bridge collapses, stands. I mean, you have to think that there's contingency plans at that level,
and I'm sure there are.
But I would love to see, especially your A, B, maybe even your C tiers, some type of medical coverage where it's like, oh, hey, I stepped on a stick and gashed my leg open because I was trying to play a lie that was stupid far away, or that was stupid far out in the thing. I would love to see that.
At every tournament I've ever been at, there's been medical coverage. It's usually the guy on my card, which is me, but
well, yes, same. I have always been medically covered and medically covering my card, but
the one
I do actually have Band-Aids.
I think the bigger ones are better.
Yeah,
I've got my bag here. I want to make sure that I actually have Band-Aids in here before I say this, but I'm pretty sure I have Band-Aids in my bag constantly.
I definitely do not.
I really should have a first aid kit in there, considering, I know how to use all that stuff.
Well, and you have a cart now, too.
Yeah.
You have the space for it.
I have so many more discs now.
Do you have more discs, or do you just carry more discs?
I carry more backups, is what it is.
Oh my gosh.
For the tournaments.
Yeah, that's fair.
The worst thing that happened to me was the first tournament I played back in 2020, like after tournaments started getting up and going again. Hole 1, easy forehand shot over a creek. I turn over my old Justice, my beat-in Justice, turn
Easy.
it over in the creek. That's my only Justice.
That's definitely words that 90% of the listening population has never heard of. Turn over a Justice.
Yes. To be fair, though,
A
that
disc
was the
is
one that I had for like
designed to
3
not be
years.
turned over.
I had that one
That
for
is
like
why
3
I
years.
carry a jade for my Lucid Air Escape.
But
I will
now,
say that is why I carry a jade.
now in my bag, I have 2 Justices. I've got 2 EMAC Truths. Some of my like distance drivers, I don't have backups, but I could make. I've got a sheriff, a trespass, and a captain. Depending on which way the wind is blowing, I could make any one of those work for the other most likely.
Well, in worst
Joe, does
case,
your
you
back hurt?
speed up or speed down.
For carrying the team or what?
Oh, I mean, mainly for carrying this podcast, but also for carrying every disc that you own.
Why do you think I have a cart?
Yeah, remember, he's got a cart. He's got to pull a stroller along with him nowadays. He doesn't have to carry anything.
I started him young.
I also have 2 putting putters, 2 throwing putters, however you want to classify the slammer and the harp, and then the blowfly.
Approach.
Yeah, the blowfly. And
What is the blowfly?
That's one I have not heard of.
That is by DGA, I think. Do you remember my classic super soft slammer?
No.
Yeah.
It was basically Matt Bell used to do this when he was sponsored by DGA, but now he's Infinite. I think he's Infinite. Whatever. Basically, it's a super soft plastic. You could ball it up like a baseball and throw it.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
Technically, I think the disc just has to start in the air, I think, is really all it takes for a legal throw.
Yeah, so you can just ball it up. There's a way to fold it in on itself, and then when it hits the ground, it like explodes open and basically just stops. I've done it a couple times, and then I have the guard, which is an ultimate disc essentially, but disc golf sized.
Hey Joe, what are you doing tomorrow?
Going to work.
Oh, I want to try this. What was it called? The blowfly?
The blowfly. Sorry, I'm also taking a picture here for Instagram. There we go. It's the important things, trying to keep up that streak. So far, 1 post every single day is my goal for 2022.
I have no Instagram. It's something I want to get into, I think, for the sake of this.
It's fun.
I have no Instagram, and it's something I don't want to get into.
Yeah, I found out for the sake of my high school, they have been posting pictures of me on Facebook or on Instagram, I've heard from my athletic director, so I'm curious to see how awful I look in those situations.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you ran on the court. I took a picture of you. It was awesome. We had lots of positive comments. I'm like, oh God, what do I look like? I don't think about what I look like when I'm doing my work stuff.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not picture ready to say that.
The reason I got it was the
have
podcast, so.
Yeah. I just have a bunch of my coaches following me on Twitter because I like a bunch of my AD's tweets about, so-and-so came in third at girls wrestling state and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, I'll like that and share it to my 10 followers on Twitter.
Yep.
If you follow me on Twitter, you're one of like 3.
I was like, don't.
Don't. It's not worth it. I promise.
2 smaller rule changes that actually made up a big discussion here that a lot of people are getting mad at. Now, previously to sign up for a tournament for a major, an elite series, or an A tier, you had to be a PDGA member. Now, it's B tier and up. You have to be a member.
That makes sense. I would say that makes sense.
I mean,
people are getting
I could
mad.
see where frustration comes in, but it's trying to help grow the sport.
Yeah.
And then when, I forget who it was, looked at it, this affects like a very small population of people in B tiers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly for tracking money and avoiding, a side benefit is avoiding sandbaggers, essentially.
Yep, and a lot of it's going to come down, I'm sure, to your recs. And a lot of that, too, is, at B tiers, I'm sure there's B tiers that are pushing their population limit.
Yep. And if your first tournament is a B tier, you're not doing something right. Yeah.
Yeah,
C
there's
tiers
too
are
many C
definitely the
tiers
way to go.
available.
C tier and league.
As a non-PDGA member, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's fair for me to come in and take a spot in Three Rivers Open is the one that we've talked about.
Yep.
I don't think it's fair for me to come in and take a spot from someone that is a member, it knows the rules really well.
Yep.
I mean, I think I know the rules really well. I know the general rules, but I'm certainly not an expert. I haven't taken any type of test on them. I'm sure there's ones. Well, a lot of things are a joke, but
I took it.
I'm sure
it wasn't hard. It cost me $10.
I'm sure there are things that I don't know that, I could probably get called on in a B tier or an A tier. Not to mention, those tier events are usually at tougher courses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to a Ledgestone or an Idlewild to play in an event because I would absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
I would be miserable trying to play in that. We've talked about, I don't like playing at Tillman because I know it would just kick my butt. So, for me, it doesn't make sense for me as a non-PDGA member, someone who likes to go and play the sport casually, and who plays in a tournament every, maybe 3 tournaments a year or something like that.
Yeah, 3 sanctioned tournaments.
Yeah, 3 sanctioned tournaments. I love playing in the Trilogy Challenge. That is actually where I got some of my first discs.
That one's a good one. 2-disc challenge is another good one.
Yeah.
And then
some doubles tournaments, some random stuff like that.
Maxton Haunt this year wasn't sanctioned, and that was a really fun tournament. It was essentially a C tier.
It is probably my favorite course in Fort Wayne.
It's not in Fort Wayne.
Well, yes, correct. It is right across from where I work. So this summer, you can bet that when I go in for summer conditioning, that my dog's
putting
coming
in some long hours at work.
That's one thing.
My dog's coming with me, and we're gonna go play disc golf after work.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Every
when I
morning,
switched jobs, I'm now in a town that has actually a really nice disc golf course, and it's one of the best in the area.
Nice.
So I'm like, sweet, I'm now in the town. So rather than what's normally a 20-minute drive, it's 30 seconds. It's pretty much across the street. So I'm going to do my morning coverage. I'll be done at 11 o'clock noonish. And then, hey, I'm going to go disc golf before I come home.
And I think RJ has a 30-second walk.
Yes.
Or shorter if he's at the football field.
Yeah. The disc golf course is literally attached. Well, it's not literally attached. It's in the park that is across the street from my football field.
Street is kind of a strong word, too.
It's a gravel road. Yeah. It is absolutely a gravel road.
It's a street the same way that those roads inside a park are streets.
Yes.
Technically.
It's across the alleyway?
Yeah, essentially.
Yes. Well, when I was covering football practices this fall, and there were people that were coming and throwing to get ready for that Maxton Hunt that Joe was talking about. I'm just sitting there watching them from across the road at football practice, being like, "Oh, I hate them so much. I just want to go play."
Football at the time either.
I crushed that tournament too.
Oh, I love that course. It
was fun.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it is one of my favorite courses. It suits me really well. If anyone is ever in Butler, Indiana, which if you've never heard of it, you're not alone.
And that's not where Butler.
Yeah, I would say it's not Butler University that people know her.
Nope.
Yeah.
Home of the East Side Blazers. The Blazers.
Well,
but anyway,
I think the next thing here. So we've got about.
What were we talking about? I don't even remember.
We were finishing up the rules.
This was a mandatory rule, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Mandatory drinks.
Done. Actually, I'm running low. I might have to go. Even with bringing extra, I'm still almost out.
That's why I brought the bottle today. I just brought the bottle of wine.
So we've got...
I gotta learn.
We've got a hard cap at 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Or we don't have a podcast next week.
What was our topic list?
I'm going to jump ahead to
I think we're on number 2.
Chris Dickerson to Discraft. I'm going to skip number 2 and go to number 3.
Yeah, we can talk about that one later.
Yeah.
What was number 2?
Disc Golf Valley.
Disc Golf Valley.
Oh, yeah, we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dickerson, coming from... I don't remember.
Prodigy. Yep.
Okay.
Prodigy decided to pretty much put all the eggs in the Kevin Jones basket. And
the way he played last year, it's not an awful idea.
he wasn't... Dickerson did better on the year. Kevin Jones
Bigger
was just
ceiling
kind
for
of
Jones.
up and down.
Bigger ceiling for Jones.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But here's the thing: is he's still top
Dickerson,
10 in the world. Dickerson.
Oh,
Dickerson?
Yeah.
really?
One of the most consistent players out
Very
there.
consistent.
That is something that you pointed out, was that he finished... He has the second longest
Like,
active
cashing
money streak.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
active
something
Yeah.
cashing. Like, when he plays tournaments, if he's going to play a tournament, he's cashing.
He's making the cash line, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
You
a
said
couple of
there's, like,
years running.
So
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about this on my other podcast, where it's valued at over 7 figures.
So it's valued at 8 figures?
Well, at least I think his wording was 7
Right.
figures plus.
Right. Which
They didn't
going
release any
into that
numbers.
word- Mhm.
And he said that he will be making enough guaranteed money that his family would live very comfortably.
Yeah.
And he got an
Looking
RV
at
in
that,
the deal.
He got an RV. Discraft is going to take care of
Yeah.
the maintenance, the gas, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
mean,
Any money
probably
he
entry
makes from
fees
this,
and-
there's no cap on money he makes out of this. Like,
And
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone really being capped. I don't know anyone who would sell that many discs.
Ricky,
maybe like a Macbeth.
after
But
maybe
he
because
was,
all the
he's
claw-
still uncapped.
But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like all the claws, like, you mean every other disc has the claws on it that's in his bag, it feels
Yeah.
like. So I could see him potentially, if they put a cap on it, I could see him meeting a cap.
I doubt, though.
Maybe someone
they-
like Eric McCabe, because the disc is named after him with the EMAC judge, maybe he has a cap on how much he can make per
'Cause
year. I
they,
could see something like that potentially, but
I mean, like if
Yeah.
a disc is $25, the player's getting like $4 or $5.
yeah.
Then the manufacturer's probably getting 10-ish, and then the distributor is getting probably 10-ish.
and that's all pre-tax,
Not
and all that
including
kind of fun stuff.
shipping, all those
Pre-tax
costs, and
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
could be completely wrong. I mean, Discraft would love to sell everything straight from their website, cut out the middleman.
Mhm.
So
But that's not happening. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
there's
There's, Discraft is in Walmart and Dick's and,
no
you know,
Innova is.
Well, Discraft's in a lot of those
I still
types of
see
places,
Discraft
too.
and Dynamic
They're
Discs in a
getting
lot
more.
of starter sets. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But kind of going back to
usually-
the topic, it's a
Yeah.
darn good move for Dickerson, I personally think. Going to a little bit bigger company, he's showing the consistency. Now he can grow his brand a little bit bigger, a little bit better.
And
You
they're
know,
coming out with the
obviously,
logo.
It's hard to say as far as money wise, kind of comparing, and I don't want to compare because what some people think $1,000 per year increase is some people's $10,000 per year increase.
Yep.
If he feels like it's comfortable for his family, it gives him the RV, which allows him to go on tour. With his consistency in cashing in tours, it potentially increases his earning rate throughout the year, strictly based on tours.
Yep.
Discraft, I have to assume, as just a general whole, sells better than Prodigy. So if he has money on discs, he's going to make more money from the disc sales. I think for Dickerson's sake, I think it's a really good move. And I think for Discraft to have someone that does a consistent finisher, you're not going to need a big name. You already have Macbeth. You already have Paige Pierce.
Yeah.
You're not going to get bigger names in the sport.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they
now
already
you
tried
have-
for Ricky. No offense to
Yeah.
Chris. But
Yeah, but I mean, you already have the biggest names in the sport. Now you're just bringing consistency. All right, Discraft is now finishing top 10, everything. Between Macbeth, between Paige, between Dickerson. It's a good move, I think, on
Billy
both
King
of their
now
parts.
too.
Does it suck for
Oh,
Prodigy? Probably.
No.
I can't imagine
Isn't-
Prodigy is. I can't imagine Prodigy's happy about losing a top tier consistent
Prodigy has
finisher.
lost a lot. They lost Chris Dickerson and they lost Katrina Allen.
And those were two huge names for them.
Yeah.
I mean,
like you said, Kevin Jones is the other big name that comes to mind, and then you have to kind of look a little bit.
He's got high potential. He just needs to get over that hump. He's
You
right
talking
there.
Jones?
Yeah.
and that's what I would say about Discraft's team now is it's not so much about filling that top end talent. It's kind of think about it like an MLB rotation. You have your ace. You have your ace on both the MPO and the FPO side. If you want to call that your rotation, you have your ace and you have your sub ace.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's about filling out those 3 through 5 spots.
Yep.
Now it's about filling out the bottom of that rotation.
Yeah, and I think it's a win-win for the signing.
I think so. Plus, they're doing more with his social media because he really isn't on social media, even though that's
exactly it.
His wife is one of the photographers for the Disc Golf Pro Tour and takes amazing photos. And I find it a little hilarious that he is on Instagram, but not like he could be crushing it with those professional
For a wife as a
pictures.
photographer, he should be everywhere, you would assume.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's not his personality. And I can understand that. It's just kind of funny that that's how that went, you know?
Yeah.
I remember reading something too with him, his wife, and their dog got signed to a deal. I don't know if it was for a bag company or a non-disc.
I can get my dog signed to a disc golf company.
I just remember reading that. When I was reading about the Dickerson signing, I remember reading something about him, his wife, and all of a sudden there was another Dickerson name, and then they showed the picture of the dog. Oh, that's who that is.
Yep.
I think it was for a bag company. Maybe I may be wrong, but
maybe.
And that's the thing too, is when you're kind of get with a bigger company, it may open doors for maybe non-disc, disc golf related things. Or you look at potentially some bags, when you look at disc, the one I know for sure is Dynamic Discs pairs up with OGIO, who's, if you can get the, that OGIO brand disc golf, that's where the bags come from. If you get a non-disc golf sponsorship, they're already kind of a shoo-in because you're already using one of their products anyways.
Yep.
So I don't know if Discraft has those kind of partnerships also.
Yeah. And that was a point that I thought was really interesting on Joe's podcast was when do we start seeing the Under Armours, the Nikes, the Adidas,
we're
et cetera,
still a little ways out, I think.
I mean, yeah, we're definitely still a little ways out from that, but when do you start seeing Ricky Wysocki, wearing Adidas on his shirt?
Not just because it's a comfortable polo, but because Adidas is giving him a check.
Right,
you brought in Bushnell.
Yeah.
You brought in Bushnell in the last year with the rangefinders. That's starting that process.
Let's be real, though, on that one. The range, I have a rangefinder. It's awesome. I love it. But how hard was it for them to just tweak something in the software? Instead of yards, it's now feet? And just
how smart of them.
Oh no, I'm not saying. No, I'm just saying
brilliant.
I'm not saying it was a genius move for the amount of effort they had to put in.
Oh God,
to reach a whole new market of people. And right now, is it a small market? Yes, compared to golf, disc golf is a tiny market. But
golf,
they were ones you weren't selling before.
And
you weren't selling it before, and now automatically you're selling it.
Yep, and that's
and it's only going to go up from there. And I know it's on my Christmas list.
That didn't cost you that much. That return on investment was huge.
Yeah.
That took someone 3 days to figure out in one of their rooms.
Yeah, it took one programmer a little bit. They gave it to a graphic designer and said, make it disc golf. And then that was it.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know what it was? It probably wasn't even someone high up. It was probably just a programmer that played disc golf that's God, I wish this read in feet. Wonder what happens if I make one that reads in feet, tries it, brings up the idea, and sure, sell it, see what happens. You already did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like we're really positive on the Chris Dickerson contract.
Yeah.
I do think he could be a little bit more clear in that his initially it said 7+ figures, and we were oh, I bet that's 300,000-400,000 a year, and now thinking about it, I think we're probably closer to the 200,000 range.
Probably.
At the same time,
everything, but
that's still good money. Don't get me wrong. It's just all these big
I would
contracts
take it
coming
to
out.
play disc golf.
The thing this year, it's more like, you didn't announce the numbers. It wasn't that good of a deal, kind of thing.
Right.
Because you're hearing
right.
all these other numbers.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't even hear numbers, or at least if I heard them, I didn't remember them till Macbeth.
He was
as soon
really
as you
the
heard
first
a million, wow, okay, that
His,
and I may be wrong. Maybe they were talking about numbers beforehand. And honestly,
Not
for
really.
Dickerson's sake, I don't blame him for not sharing the numbers.
that's
If he
fine.
wanted to, I'm sure he could. There may be something in the contract that says he can't, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine if
Yeah.
Paul's out there sharing his number that they would write something that says Dickerson can't.
yeah, and he probably just doesn't want to, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. But you know what?
Yeah.
Do you know what his tour series disc is?
Buzz,
Buzz.
wasn't it?
Buzz.
Was it Buzz?
Buzz, yeah. So
Yes.
he has got a money printing machine, essentially.
And
people
it's
are
a new
gonna-
stamp. And let's be fair, your Buzz people that already have 500 buzzes,
Yeah.
I want the new stamp.
Everybody, that's just a disc that everybody's going to buy. It doesn't matter whose name is on it, no offense. But, it's going to sell. And now that it's got his name on it, you're tapping into potentially some more people.
Yeah, so I typically throw DD. There are, I think, 2 discs in my bag that are not one of the trilogy brands. One of them is Ben's Old Beast.
Oh God, you still have that?
Yep.
It has not found water yet.
Because
I
it's
throw
not
it
water
on-
themed.
That has found every tree out there. That thing has got to be it probably doesn't even qualify as like a 10-speed. It's probably an 8-speed because the diameter's just chipped in so much at this point.
So I throw that hole over every single freaking pond I find, and it has not ended up in the water yet.
I want
I'm
to
just
lose
like,
this disc. damn
I
it.
don't
Go away.
care if I lose this disc. I didn't pay anything for it. Ben doesn't give a crap about it.
I didn't even know
I
where
don't
it
care
was.
if it ends up in the pond.
Yep.
So naturally, I park it on every single water hole I throw it on.
Hey, keep
and
doing
then
it.
the
And
other-
when it finally goes swimming, remind me that I lent you a disc so I can be pissed off and copy out of another one.
I did lose your shark and your gauntlet, by the way. So we'll worry about that later. But anyway, based on his reaction, listeners, he doesn't remember that he had a shark or gauntlet.
I remember the shark. I just assumed I lost it.
Yeah.
It had something to do with water. I assumed I lost it.
It did go swimming, so I did keep up your tradition. But anyway, and the other one is a beat to hell Buzz that
that you found.
not even my sister-in-law found when we were playing under like a quarter of an inch of snow in the backwoods of some, of a course that we were playing. And I'm probably going to replace it with a bounty because I threw the bounty today for the first time and I absolutely love it. And it's a very similar flight pattern. But boy, that Buzz to me is one that I'm just like, oh boy, I like throwing it because it is a straight shooter for me.
Yep.
And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that loves that disc. For my understanding, that's kind of the Discraft version of the EMAC Truth or the
Rock.
It's like a rock, yeah.
I mean, that is the go-to mid.
Yep.
I mean, every company if you look at companies, they all have a go-to putter, a go-to mid, a go-to driver. When you look at Innova, AVR Rock, Destroyer.
Which AVR though?
Yeah.
That's a whole different debate.
Which Destroyer, which Rock. I mean, it's a big argument all the way through.
Yeah.
When you look at Discraft, I can't think of. I mean, Luna has probably become their top-selling putter for the sake of Paul Macbeth. I would assume that's at the top of the list.
Yeah, the Page Pierce Fierce.
Yeah.
Without a question. I mean, you could also count Zone as their top-selling putter, even though it's not really a putter.
It's listed as a putter. We'll
Is that
say it
more
like
like
that.
the harp?
It's the same thing as the harp. It's the same thing as a slammer. It's the same thing as a pig. They're listed as putter, but they're not really putter. But Buzz, without question, they're mid. Their driver nowadays, I'm assuming Nuke. Nuke was their top seller for a
Hades
long
is pretty
time.
popular. That's one of the Paul Macbeth lines.
That's one of the newer ones, though, right? Did that come out with Macbeth? Or was that before Macbeth?
Good question. I know it's in
I
the.
can't
I know it's got
remember.
his logo and everything, and you can't find one without it.
Yeah.
I'm just mad that they stole my idea for selling discs by labeling them as Greek heroes, gods, etc.
Well,
That was my idea, and they stole it probably before I even thought of it. But
probably.
I
whatever.
mean, I gotta say that is one of my favorite things about dynamic disc, though. At least early on, I don't know if it's still there, but it kind of feels like it is. They all have some sort of like justice system reference.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Military
I mean, I
background
just-
kind of thing.
I find it funny. I find it funny and enjoyable in that sense.
I
And like
think-
West Side,
Not really.
West Side has something also like that. I can't remember what
Norse.
it is.
It's
No,
It's all
Latitude is
some sort
Norse.
of like. Well, aren't they Finnish or Swedish?
yes,
It's all
Yeah.
based off of like a cultural thing, which I think is really cool.
Finland.
Everything they bring in, yeah. So it's all some sort of like Finnish culture or something. It's all related to that somehow, some way. I like when they stick to it. I mean, even Discmania, they're boring. You know, the F2, the P2, whatever.
I mean,
but
that's the same
they're
naming system
consistent with it.
Prodigy has.
I mean, they're consistent with it, which I think is kind of cool when you're
Yeah.
consistent. I mean, it's also fun. Don't get me wrong. Innova kind of having different everything is also a lot of fun too. Elites for way cooler stamps that you can do with stuff like that. But
Yep.
I just kind of like that niche of something fun like that.
Yeah. I mean, you look
Speaking
at
of
DD,
stamps.
they're still doing that. The Bounty, I think, was one of the newer discs they had.
Mhm.
I'm not counting the EMAC Judge because I mean it's
But it's the judge.
It's
It's
the
an
judge
EMAC.
with
Judge.
micro bead instead of a full bead.
Yeah.
Vandal, I think, was the one before that. That was one of the more recent ones.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I think this is a good place to end it.
Well, do we want to talk
hang on.
real
Do we
quick
want to
about
get to
that one
our?
other?
Do we want to really quickly get to our one listener question,
I
or,
think we
or is
might
that
have to
going
do
to be
that
way
next
too
time.
long?
Why don't we
Okay.
talk about the other signing though, the Haley King signing?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, Haley King, real
Yes,
quick.
let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Because otherwise, that'll be old news if it's
Yes.
not already. Because that
Oh my
happened like
God.
a day after
That
we
one-
stopped our last podcast.
That one felt
Yes.
like it was right time for everybody because
Yep.
I don't think Haley
Mhm.
King left with a plan. It felt
Which
like
surprised me because it felt like she did. And the further we got into it, and same thing kind of goes for Katrina Allen. I thought she left with a plan, and now it kind of doesn't feel like she did.
I mean, I think with both of those girls, a lot of it was maybe they did have kind of an idea in mind. Maybe they had some soft offers.
yeah.
But they're both the next up and coming. I mean, maybe
Yep.
not Katrina next up and coming. She's already been
Katrina's
there.
there.
She's there.
But,
She's
like-
already there.
We talked about it last time. Behind Paige Pierce, those are the two names you think of.
Yep.
I mean, yes, Sarah Holcomb, Lisa Ficus, those kind of names pop in. But if you talk about the two that are going to be competing for tournaments,
Yeah.
Yep.
King and Allen are the two that
You're
pop up.
absolutely
And
right.
she's still
So
pretty
I
young.
think once they got on the market, for as much as they may have had some soft offers, I'm sure more came in and they just took their time to think about it.
One
And I
one of
think for the
things-
sake of Innova, I think it's a smart signing on their part.
Yep.
It brings in another big name with a lot of potential coming forward.
I think she wanted to get out of Paige Pierce's shadow at Discraft.
Yep.
Mhm.
One of the things that made me really think, and this wasn't point, I wish I could claim credit for this, but this is the guys over at Griplock. She left, and then like right before she left, they dropped a whole line of like not tour series discs, but basically like, hey, you had a great season disc with her name on it, and then she left. So you got to think like it wasn't like, oh, hey, she just won Pro Tour Championship. You know, yeah, she's leaving, but she won it with us, so we're gonna make this run of whatever the disc was. And now, yeah, it's like, ugh. But I think it really helped out Innova with them because Evelina and Henna, who are right up there, basically the top four are Kristen Tatar, Evelina, Henna, and Paige Pierce, and you could run that list however you want. I just went off the top of my head. So I think if Evelina and Henna come over, they're Innova, she's going to be in the shadow again. But because
If they come over.
who
Yes.
knows? They're planning to
with-
they're planning to tour a lot more this year, but with the restrictions, who knows?
To quote Hercules, if is good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I can't imagine it's a bad signing.
No.
I can't see a downside for it from Innova. I mean, I've heard stupid rumors out there that Haley King doesn't have a good interview and her social media presence is, less than. But
That's a lot
I
of
think
disc
right
country
now
still.
she's also young.
Yeah.
I mean, she's young. I haven't seen anything outright where it's like, wow, she's an awful person. She may not have the best interview skills, but I haven't seen anything out of her that makes me not like her.
Have you looked at some of the early Paige Pierce stuff? Or the early Paul Macbeth? Or Ricky Wysocki when he was with Latitude?
There's nothing that makes me not like her.
Like Ricky's videos with Latitude, it looks like a hostage video. But he's gotten so much better because they worked on it with him.
I mean, everybody has. Every company has stepped up that game, which means every individual has learned through the company.
Yep, and it's going to take time, but she'll get better.
Well, and another thing is, Innova has seemed like it's been hemorrhaging people. I mean, we talked about Prodigy losing a whole bunch of people. Innova's been right there with them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Some big names.
Yeah. I mean, they lost... Who all did they lose?
I mean, Paul and Ricky. In 2 years, they lost Paul. They lost Paul, gained Ricky, and then they lost Ricky.
Lost Ricky.
I mean, those are the two big names.
Right.
Kona, Mason, Ford,
exactly.
Valerie Manahano.
Which I do want to shout out something. Today was my first round of the year, and I went out and threw my bounty in the in a football field, and I also threw my Kona Vandal in the field.
How's that flying?
I like that disc too.
Okay.
I love the bounty right now, but that Vandal, oh boy, I'm gonna throw that one some this year. And it's gonna be real nice.
That's the disc that's getting me. Those are the two discs that are getting me to my hyzer flip.
I did actually flip the Vandal. I actually annied it a little bit too much and just threw it. My first throw with it went straight into the ground. But after I figured out how to actually throw it, I'm like, oh, this is... I think this.
Once you get that one in an open field and get a good chance to work on it, that's going to step up your driving game.
The crazy thing is, I was throwing my Vandal maybe 20 feet more than my bounty. That thing has so much glide. I told you guys before we started recording, boy, that bounty might be my new favorite mid. Between bounty, harp, and EMAC, oh boy. Those might be very, very good mid ranges for me.
That bounty, the glide on the bounty, like I said last week, it's very easy to throw it a lot farther than you think.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4-speed. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like probably a 6 or a 7.
It goes the same distance as a 6 or a 7.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it. 9. Yeah, Vandal's a 9 because I've looked at this because I wanted to get the Escape, the Vandal, and the Getaway because that's kind of the...
I just got a Getaway.
I really want to get a Getaway. I think we've talked about this, that you can get a Dymax. Ooh, that's pretty. I think we've talked about this, is that you can get a Dymax Getaway, and that's what I've been thinking about getting for our... we've talked about adding our logo, which we have a logo.
We do?
You created this, Joe.
You showed us something last week.
Yeah. What is the owl's name, Joe?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Out? I have no idea.
We're calling it Hootie until we come up with a better name.
Well, that might be trademarked. I don't know.
That might, yeah. That was just me legitimately searching, going on Google, looking for pretty much free, like licensed, copyright free images, going into that section and typing in the word drunk.
So we are now Hootie and the Drunk Asses?
Yeah.
It's pushing it. So, all right. Well, that probably brings us to a more, feeling like we covered at least one of the topics we wanted to talk about, right? You listed 4 things, talked about 2. That's already better than last week.
Yeah.
I think I've gone full Archer on this bottle of wine. So, yeah, I think it's about time to wrap this episode up.
I'd say so. That was a fun time. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
An hour later.
Yeah, you can get us wherever podcasts are sold for free. And because we're on Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Castbox, iHeartRadio. All the major ones, and then a whole bunch of ones that I don't remember. Pocket Casts. That's like one of those weird. I don't know.
How do you remember this?
Because I've done it for over a year with mine. There's a reason why I remember all of those. Those are the same ones. Both podcasts are on there. So you can also find Joe's Disc Golf or Half in the Bag Disc Golf podcasts in all of those spots. Or you could go to joesdiscgolf.com and find it. Or halfinthebagdg.com. Got to remember that one.
If for some reason you're still wildly listening, please give us topics, stuff that you guys actually want to hear about, because otherwise it's just us rambling, and we had questions, we didn't get to them today, so one of these days we'll have to do an entire episode of just questions to assure we get to some.
Well, if we don't spend 45 minutes on the rules...
Episode.
We spent 45 minutes on the rules.
We're like the most nerdy podcast ever.
Yes. As you're wearing a Critical Role sweatshirt, Ben.
I have no idea what you'd be talking about there.
So plenty of places. We do have we have a Twitter handle at halfinthebagdg, or you can hit me up, Joe's Disc Golf. RJ.
If you really want to follow me, I'm at RJ Wilson 131.
I think that's right.
Don't follow me. It's not worth it. It's a lot of it's a lot of high school likes and very few tweets. Follow our actual podcast. It's a better follow than me.
Yeah. One of these days we should get an Instagram going up. Once we hit summer, can take some videos, can take some pictures. That way, if one of us hits an ace, we can have like more than just 2 people that hear about it. Pretend like we're excited.
I'm still looking for my first.
Well, you guys are 1 and 2. So like maybe the other 1 viewer we have can be number 3 that season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I will say I did hit an ace on Disc Golf Valley, which is a topic for another episode.
Yes,
for sure.
All right, I think that wraps it up here. So everybody take it easy.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.